Few things derail a potentially great wrestling match quite like the sight of an unfortunate botch. And just to illustrate this, I take you back to Super Showdown 2019 when you had the big bad Goldberg himself coming up against the Undertaker, and we all know what happened. It at first seemed as though we were going to get a genuine clash of the Titans, the Dead Man versus Big Da Man. But then crap hit the fan when Goldberg's head went slamming straight into a turnbuckle, he got concussed, and then they nearly killed each other. But mistakes need not ruin a match, because in actual fact, sometimes they can make it that much better. It is something that can be mastered because Goldberg himself actually did it 21 years ago, and yeah, we're going to cover that, we're going to talk all about that and so much more, because I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and these are 10 wrestling matches that had mistakes that made them that much better. Number 10, Goldberg vs. Diamond Dallas Page, WCW Halloween Havoc 1998. Now, when it comes to the main event of Halloween Havoc 1998, it's probably more widely known for the fact that it was at the center of one of the biggest televised botches in history. And that's not to say it was a botch that necessarily went down in between the ropes. I mean, there was one, but it was more the fact that the actual pay-per-view cut off midway through the pay-per-view main event because they ran over time on the pay-per-view. But when fans did actually manage to watch this Goldberg vs. DDP main event for the World Heavyweight Championship on Nitro for free a little bit later, I know, what a world, that's when they saw Big Bad Bill smash his head and shoulder and just about everything else into a turnbuckle, because that's just what he does, and he did it 2 decades earlier as well. But on this occasion, instead of nearly killing a dead man, the actual injury, the thing, his shoulder got smashed up and just battered, that in itself led to something pretty damn intriguing. Because the match then suddenly had a layer of authenticity. You knew that Goldberg's shoulder was genuinely messed up. He then proceeded to try and spear DDP and smashed his head straight into the mat and concussed himself again. And then after this, he tried to get him up for a jackhammer, failed, struggled, I know, demand struggling, what a madness. And then after that, he finally did get him up for the jackhammer, won the match, but the drama, the emotion, my god, I'm still not recovering. Number 9, Titus World Slide, Greatest Royal Rumble 2018. I always forget there was a 50-man Royal Rumble, the greatest Royal Rumble, if you will, that has happened in our lifetime. Now, let's be honest, the goal here was not to create some kind of all-timer Royal Rumble that would go down in history as one of the greatest ever with loads of big returns and star-making moments. That's just not what we were trying to do here. All he really wanted to do was be this kind of breezy, over-the-top rope encounter, and really to that end, it succeeded, didn't it? You had unlikely returns, you had a few cool moments with Daniel Bryan getting his chest absolutely ripped open, and then Braun Strowman just eliminated everyone and got a nice replica green belt thing, yay. But you'd be lying to yourself if you did not say and did not agree that the entire show was stolen by a certain person sliding down the ramp. Just like that, Titus World Slide became the meme of 2018, and it's still fueling podcasts for What Culture Wrestling thanks to Mr. Worldborn all these years later. Titus lost his footing, he lost his way, went straight under that ring, and Corey Graves lost his damn mind on commentary and started giggling like a child, and I was doing that too at home because it was fun, wasn't it? It was a fun thing, and it made this match that little bit more memorable. Number 8, Sergeant Slaughter vs. Pat Patterson, WWF at Madison Square Garden, May 1981. I'm just going to call it how it is. This was a dirty, gritty fight. Pat Patterson and Sergeant Slaughter were embroiled in a pretty gritty grudge, blood feud, whatever you want to call it. Things got very heated to the point of having this particular kind of match. Known as the alley fight, they both dressed like they were not about to have a wrestling match. They dressed like they'd had a few pints at the pub and just stumbled out into a back alley, hence the alley fight. Hell, things were so damn intense, there wasn't even a referee. You can't have a referee with this kind of match because it's not a match, it's just a fight. Things were already pretty intense as they were because these two wanted to kill each other in the middle of the ring, that's how it felt. But then Sergeant Slaughter inadvertently bashed his head, he just split himself open, he gashed his skull on a turnbuckle, I think it was, and then the blood started to flow, and this was one heck of a crimson mask. And after this, because he was a bit dizzy and there was a lot of blood and plasma just coming all down his face and he was looking horrendous, Sergeant Slaughter just began flailing. He was flailing with these knuckle dusters trying to hit Patterson, and it just felt so real. I mean, that bit was real, obviously, but the entire thing felt real. It was real to me, damn it. Number 7, Big Van Vader vs. Stan Hansen, New Japan Pro Wrestling Super Fight in Tokyo Dome 1990, in which Vader's eye popped out of his skull. Yeah, this is that match. So Vader and Stan Hansen were about as big, meaty, and stiff as they come, let's be honest. But Hansen's decision to be quite stiff wasn't really much of a decision, it was more born out of necessity. Because wrestling folklore pretty much states that Hansen was so blind, really, and just didn't have that great eyesight, that if he didn't throw his punches as hard as he possibly could, if one of his punches looked a bit weak or something like that, he'd look a fool. So he was like, well, if in doubt, I'm just going to actually smack people in the head. And just about no American wrestler out there could match Hansen's stiffness, apart from Big Man Vader. And then when they wrestled for the first time in February 1990, guess what happened? One of their eyes popped out. Because they were going back and forth like the two kaiju warriors that they are, and Hansen was like really going at it on Vader, and he accidentally caught him with his thumb and hit him that hard, it came out. And you've probably seen the image where it's all swollen up and horrible. The fact is he pushed it back in and carried on fighting. So the drama was just up here. If you go back and watch this match, it is a brawl already. And then just seeing him have the eye problem and pop it back in afterwards, you're like, what are you? What are you, man? What are you? So whatever way you slice it, there is not a kayfabe act on the planet that's going to generate as much shock as someone's eye genuinely popping out and then them popping it back in and carry on wrestling. It's crazy. Number 6, The Undertaker versus Mankind, WWE King of the Ring, 1998. Yeah, I know, you've probably heard about this one before, but for this kind of list, how can you not talk about Mick Foley going through the top of a cell when he wasn't supposed to go through the top of the cell the second time? Now, firstly, the first bump that Mankind did take in the match was actually part of the plan. No, it was not through the cage, it was off the cage and onto a table, but even The Undertaker was like, dude, do you really want to do this? Like, you're gonna die? And he was like, yep, fancy it, let's have a go. The next bump was not meant to happen as it happened because he wasn't meant to go through the cage when he got chokeslammed by The Undertaker. The cage was supposed to sag. It was supposed to unhook a little bit, like they designed it, so the cage sagged a little bit when you got chokeslammed, and it just looked really dramatic. But no, they didn't do that. It went straight through because people didn't really plan things as well as what they should have done back then. It was a different time. And then after the second fall, he carried on wrestling, because that's becoming a theme, isn't it, in this match? You just do something ridiculous, a mistake happens that would normally kill another person, and then you just carry on wrestling, because that's just what these absolute psychopath human beings did. Number 5, Kurt Angle versus Shane McMahon, WWE King of the Ring 2001. Sure, he may be a little bit problematic nowadays, but let's face it, Shane McMahon is still one hell of a fun crash test dummy. Again, while he might be veering close to redundant in 2022, even as recently as 2019 he proved that he's still up to just throwing his body and throwing caution to the wind and falling off massive things and hurting himself for our entertainment. But there's falling off something, and then there's being thrown through something that you shouldn't be thrown through, and that's exactly what happened at King of the Ring 2001 in that Kurt Angle absolute spectacle, and it's probably, well, quite possibly his finest hour, let's be honest. The entire critically revered bout was massively heightened by the sight of Shane McMahon being launched through glass that was meant to be one kind of glass, and it wasn't that kind of glass. It was really thick glass, it wasn't sugar glass, so when you throw somebody really thick glass, it hurts. And that's when you go through it. Now just imagine what happens when you just bounce off the glass and your head hits the concrete, because that's exactly what happened to Shane McMahon. They didn't give up though, because they're just absolute lunatics, so Kurt insisted and he just kept throwing him at the glass, just kept throwing him, and then he got to the point where he was like, I'm not going to suplex you now, I'm just going to pick you up by your shirt and your pants and just, launch you. Shane got battered, absolutely battered, and it not only put over how absolutely brutal that Kurt Angle was as a performer, and still was for many, many more years after that, it also put over the fact that Shane McMahon could take one hell of an ass kicking. Number 4, The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 25. Pretty popular choice this when it comes to talking about the greatest WrestleMania match or just wrestling match of all time in many different circles. This one had drama, this one had technical prowess, it had everything you want out of a top-class WrestleMania match between two absolute titans of the industry. And it also had a botch that just made things that little bit more engaging, compelling, whatever word you want to use. Because towards the kind of latter stage of his critically acclaimed run as the crazy WrestleMania show stealer Undertaker, Mark Calloway decided he was a cruiserweight, and he used to do this massive leap over the top rope, and he'd land on people and sprawl. My elbows clicked then, did you hear that? But on this occasion, when he did the big leap and his elbows cracked, he landed on top of the cameraman and nearly broke his neck. because it was all just a bit botched. The cameraman didn't get there in time, and he was actually like Jimmy Snooker's son, and it was all just a bit clunky, and Calloway looked in some serious trouble. But he beat the count, just didn't know where he was, which became a bit of a theme later down the line because he also got knocked silly by Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania a couple of years on. But the scariness of this botch put the world on edge, and they thought, could this happen? Could this now be the moment where the Undertaker's streak is broken? It wasn't, but our hearts were when Shawn Michaels just couldn't get the job done. Number 3, Kevin Owens versus CJ Parker, NXT TakeOver Revolution. Now, I think this definitely ranks as one of the most important nights in NXT's initial growth as a brand, as an alternative, whatever you want to call it. It was just very important, wasn't it? Because this night was bookended by Kevin Owens, who became one of the feature players of this brand. Because he debuted in a match against CJ Parker, then by the end of the night, he was whooping his old pal Sami Zayn's ass, and then that like WWE chapter of this storied rivalry began. But pretty much setting the tone for the kind of character that they had signed on the dotted line. In this match, Kevin Owens got his face absolutely erupted by CJ Parker out of nowhere, and things just got that little bit more electric from there on out. Because there was like an open palm strike thing that CJ Parker did to Kevin Owens, and in the process, his nose just burst open. It just broke and exploded. And then CJ Parker's arm as well, his hand, that started to cut open and bleed as well. Things then began to get a little bit more intense from there on out, because CJ Parker made Kevin Owens bleed his own blood. It made Owens look like an absolute badass in just overcoming the blood and the gore to win the match and just be uncompromising in the process. And all in all, this was the first of many times where Kevin Owens would just keep fighting. I've got a t-shirt that says it, but I'm not wearing it because I didn't think this through. Number 2, the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers All Out 2019. So it's a bit of a Marmite match this, because you either love it for the absolute excessive crazy spots that happen every other minute, or you hate it for that exact reason. So there's kind of no in between really with this one. Because these two teams, the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers, were out of control. They had ladders, they had chaos, and that is all they need to just blow your mind. So to really get over the kayfabe fact that they were willing to kill each other and just do whatever it took to win the match and win the day, they legitimately tried to kill each other to win the match and win the day. Towards the back end of the match, Penta had his mask ripped open a little bit and he just went full crazy Penta mode, and things got a bit scary, I'll be honest. Because after taking out Mac Jackson was got a hold of by Ray Phoenix. He got him on top of a ladder, and the two of them did this like pile driver drop kick thing onto the ladder, but the ladder didn't break. And this non-breaking of the ladder just made the entire thing send a chill up my spine. It's freaking me out now just thinking about it, because he just crumpled on top of this ladder. Yeah, he was safe because Ray Phoenix is a bloody pro, and he didn't like drop his head genuinely onto the friggin' steel steps down below. But the way this thing was crafted and sold just give off the impression that the match was done. This was game over. This was a bad thing gone wrong. This was not part of the plan, and these guys are merciless. Seconds later, the Lucha Brothers had the belts. They were the winners. They were the champs. But had this ladder not broken, maybe you wouldn't have had the same level of, oh my god, these guys are absolute psychopaths, as what we would have had. It probably still would have been a good match, but just that ladder staying put, it was stubborn. It's a stubborn ladder. Number 1, the Great Suzuki versus Jushin Liger, New Japan Pro Wrestling Super J Cup 1994. Now, I'll be honest, this was way before my time, because I was actually born in 1994. But based on what you hear when you talk to the absolute esteemed gentlemen at What Culture and just all the other kind of generation above me folks who talk about wrestling, this was a pivotal night in the history of just pro wrestling in general. But it was the second to last match in particular, the one I'm just about to talk about, that really caught attention, to be honest, because of one big old botch thing that happened at the end and how it was handled. Because after being caught in Liger's chosen ground game, the thing they love to do best in all the world, just keeping people crippled to the ground and just stretching them, bending them and breaking them, Suzuki turned the tide with his quick kicks, his high-octane offense, and things were looking good. And just when it looked as though he may have the match completely in his hands and he could do whatever he wanted to do to win the day, he jumped up on the apron, went to springboard, and tripped. It was heartbreaking. And Jushin Thunder Liger just sold this like, ha, what an idiot, what a stupid man, now I'm just going to take my time because I'm in the ring with an idiot. But it was a fool's mistake, because this hubris, this arrogance in the moment then led to a brilliant chef's kiss small package from Suzuki. He tricked him, he's sucking him in, he played possum, and he won the day. This was an example of just being able to take something that could have completely derailed the match and just finished it and made it a laughingstock and turn it into gold. They turned it into absolute brilliance, gold. Go and seek it out if you've not seen it, but this When you trip, when you fall, just turn it into your advantage, just like Suzuki. And that's our list. Of any other wrestling matches that were enhanced or made better or just more entertaining from a little mistake, a little botch, whatever you think. Then let me know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're at it. Also, if you like this kind of thing, head on over to whatculture.com and find more incredible articles and videos and things and content and wrestling and stuff, because there's all of it. It's all there on the website. Follow myself on Twitter at gmorgan04. Follow everyone here at WhatCulture at WhatCultureWWE. Thank you, as always, for clicking on this fantastic video today. Hopefully, I'll see you in my red t-shirt very, very soon. I think I will, and if I don't, something's gone terribly wrong, and I may have to take advantage and turn it into something great. Ha! What an ending. Bye-bye.